Hello, everyone, and welcome to the interview episode of What's New in Cloud FinOps with myself, Franck Contrepoix, my great friend,
Stephen Old.
There we go. And today we're very happy to welcome Amit, who is going to talk to us about an absolutely amazing initiative he's doing. So, Amit, start by explaining a little background of you, and we'll take it from there.
Yes. Hi, Steve and Frank. Thank you for having me. Very excited to be on your show. So in terms of my background, I would say I was lucky enough to start my career in software engineering when the world kind of shifted to the cloud. And I've happened to be at Microsoft as a software engineer at the time. So actually, I got to build some of the first Azure services and build them at Microsoft scale. So it was quite a journey, and that's where I fell in love with the cloud, I would say. Also there, I started dealing with governance in terms of our security, our costs, etc. And our costs were very, very significant in internal bills. And as you know, Microsoft has show back and charge back as well internally, so our bills did matter. Yes, so that was the beginning of my career. After that, I have also built cybersecurity products on top of AWS and then became an engineering manager in VP R&D. And then I really got dragged into FinOps because we were the only, the first cloud product in the company, which was traditionally on-prem. And then I had all these, awkward conversations with the CFO about why is this bill rising? When is it going to end? Is it going to scale with the amounts of customers we'll onboard? What's your prediction for the next year? How should we budget this? How can we optimize? Why are the bills so big? Can they be smaller? Can they be smaller? Yes, and so that's how I really got into FinOps. And as part of that, I saw a lot of unresolved problems with certain areas, which now we've started this company 2 years ago, OpenOps, to actually build solutions for automation in that space, because that's a big gap that we were seeing there.
So when you started being asked the FinOps questions, what were the first things that you found challenging? I know then you saw the automation stuff, but that probably wasn't the first step, right? What were the first things you found challenging?
Yes, so actually, I think automation did come almost as part of the first efforts, because I think that when companies start to onboard the cloud and the bills get higher and higher and higher and higher, before you hire FinOps, you have your DevOps, and usually DevOps just get asked to somehow cut the costs.
Yeah.
And then you start dealing
while
with
delivering everything else, right?
Yes, while delivering everything else, while scaling, while innovating, while allowing everyone to innovate, etc. So the first thing we noticed is, okay, if we put our attention to it, we can save huge amounts of money. The second thing we noticed is that because we allowed developers freedom, because we optimized for innovation, and therefore we kind of wanted people to try out new AWS services that just come out, and we wanted people to be able to experiment, we found that, that creates a lot of problems, and people often create security issues, of course, which we had to block and policy against. And also create financial problems, like just forgetting databases or putting like a 16 Excel instance for something that is only using like 0.01% CPU. And that's where we said, okay, if we want to keep freedom to innovate and but not create wasteful bills, we need automation almost from the start. But maybe that was, very engineering mindset, because we were like a single product group controlling all the engineering of the product. And therefore, automation and building scripts to solve problems was our first go-to solution, actually. And then after that, the questions about like, how will this scale? How do we budget it? How do we forecast it? Started coming as well. So we ended automation quite early in our journey, I would say.
one thing I really like when you just said is we optimized for innovation. And that is interesting. What are the other ways you think you can optimize a workload? You can optimize an organization, really.
Yes, so you can definitely optimize for governance, and some organizations definitely need to do that. Like, let's take a bank, financial institution, right? Innovation is nice. In the end, you can't afford to have any security gaps or compliance gaps or anything like that. So you can't allow developers, for example, to use any AWS service that they want and configure that AWS service however they want, right? You have to block it. So you can definitely optimize for better governance, and you can centralize everything and have very hard-coded policies, etc. And that a bit stifles innovation, because then people can't use that new serverless database that AWS just released and check out how it fits with our architecture, etc. But sometimes you have to do that. You just have compliance and regulatory constraints that force you to do it. And usually it happens in larger enterprises. So that's interesting.
So you can optimize. I was trying also to think and following with you. So you can optimize for governance, you can optimize for innovation, you can probably optimize for cost, obviously trying to reduce. You can optimize for quality, for the SLA, the delivery thing. And my guess is, in my head, it's cyclical. As you go to, there is a bit where we need to innovate, and then you go say, now we need to control the cost, and then we need to control in general, and then we need. It probably goes back, and you change your strategy over time. But I really like. It's the first time I hear that we've optimized for innovation. Was an interesting thing. The other bit you said, you created scripts to, let's say. I find a disconnection between the problem, which was we were not using the right, or people were so completely free that they were using the wrong things, or anything really, they didn't care, and building script to stop that. So is that you were, what were the script forcing people to use certain instances or limiting the, how did you engineering?
How did you fix that problem here?
Yeah.
So essentially, yes, that's a very good question, because I think that's where scripting is different than policies, because it allows you to do more, right?
Yes.
So, for example, you can, for certain things, of course, we built policies that would just block. Like, for instance, you can't open your DevOps environments to the internet and have the internet index them and be able to access them. These kind of things, of course, you need to block with policy. But what do you do when someone provisions a database for an experiment and is using it for 2 days and then stops using it and forgets about it? Yeah. It's kind of hard to policy against, right? But what you can do is shed sunlight so everyone would know. So we didn't want to make it personal, right? I didn't want to go chasing people personally. Hey, David, you forgot that database. Hey, Anne, you forgot that database, right? So we just built scripts that inform people, hey guys, there's a database. No one connected to it for 7 days or 14 days. It costs $5,000 a month. And the person who opened it is John. Yeah. That was enough for people to remediate themselves.
Interesting, yes.
And that was enough to almost eliminate any type of wasteful behaviors that are just, let's say, rude, like opening a database and not using it completely. Of course, discovering underutilization, we did a lot of reporting, internal reporting, because once everyone sees who's accountable, who is spending what, and underutilizing their resources, people tend to fix it themselves without anyone telling them anything. And that's where, I always say, a lot of times the culture that you want to create really, really correlates with the tools you implement. So, for example, one example that I love giving here, it's not from the cost and FinOps worlds, but it's quite a good example for how to create a culture of accountability or not to create a culture of accountability. So one example we had for that in our engineering org is that we were used to deploy every day in a nightly job. So at night, all the commits would be picked up and deployed to production. And then if that job failed, it didn't pass the test, someone introduced a problem, then it would send a report saying, job failed, these 10 commits are in charge, usually by 10 different people. And now what used to happen is that no one took ownership, no one was accountable, everyone were blaming each other, everyone were sure it's not their problem, right? And then we improved our pipeline. Yes, and we deployed on every commit. And then it was like, Danny did it. Danny's job failed. And that completely changed everything. Suddenly people became accountable, right? So I always, when people tell me like, we need to change our culture, it's not about tooling, it's about both. Tools support the culture that you want to create. Exactly. You can easily create tools that will encourage a bad culture. You can easily create tools that will encourage a good culture.
That's a really good point. And one thing you remind me, I was, when you were talking about it, I was in a completely different world. I was there where I would just put something. I think it was Google doing that. Is say, guys, anything that is non-production is turning off at midnight. And if it's not been running and it's not going to last for more than a week. So if you want something more than a week, it was quite interesting because you've put, as you say, the culture was about empowering people to do the stuff. In my case, it was stop thinking about it. We'll take care of the cleaning behind the things. I'm too nice, possibly, or too wrong. Well, anyway, who cares?
Well, it's interesting. We had Dimitris Perdicu on, didn't we, a while ago, and he did some gamification stuff, and he basically put a script that told people when things that weren't switched off in non-production at midnight. And what people started doing is they worked out what time of day it was, and they'd switch it off at 11:59, switch it back on at 12:01. They would just game the system. Okay.
That's a big risk, by the way. Like that, I saw things like that happening as well. And definitely I would never recommend anyone to put, for example, a KPI measuring people on how much they saved. Because, let's just say I saw one case, I wouldn't shame the company and name them. But I saw a very large enterprise where engineering managers were encouraged to save a very large amount. And if they did, they would get a new open position.
Oh, wow.
For it. Yes, it was a large organization.
Would they overspec and then cut down?
Oh, wow.
Not that bad, but definitely I heard it from friends of mine who were cloud engineers there. And they said, like, they came to their manager and they said, dear manager, I can save a huge amount here. And the manager told them, wait a bit more, because they knew that if it grows a bit more and then they will do this effort, they will get another position. So wait 3-4 more months. It's okay that you can save, I don't know, $500,000 a month. But wait a bit more.
That's why. Yeah, it's very hard to get the right
policies.
Yes, exactly. But it's not. It's very hard to get good policies. I think that's also something.
Absolutely.
Yes, but that's exactly where I think like automation can really help you when you do things that are not a policy, but just shed light on what's going on, create visibility, create ownership. Someone is accountable for something wrong that is happening. Then it's harder to game because you've just shed light on everything. You didn't say what you should do about it.
Transparency.
And so you spent the years having FinOps thrust upon you while really wanting to be doing DevOps and software. And so at what point did that flip and you kind of go, do you know what, this stuff that we're doing, this is what it sounds like to me, the stuff that we're doing, like, why isn't everyone doing this? Why don't we help everyone do this kind of thing? And is that where your new organization came from?
Yes, exactly. So first of all, I would say that, naturally as a, personal interest as an engineer, I was always attracted to infrastructure work. love the cloud. I love scale. I love security. I love infrastructure. I'm like, I was honestly excited by releases like CDK, for example, in AWS that allow you to build infrastructure in a more scalable way. I was never like the application guy, I would say. I was always like the infrastructure guy. I think that the moment that I understood that there's something bigger here is when I saw how hard it is for our organization to build these best practices going forward, when we were no longer like the first group building on the cloud. Suddenly other groups started building on the cloud, all the company's products started building on the cloud, and I was feeling like we built such good infrastructure internally, and like I wish I could, help other groups adopt it. And at that time, we didn't have a lot of infrastructure at the organizational level. Like we didn't have a strong CCOE, for example, and therefore, everything was in one-to-one conversations with their infrastructure, with other groups' infrastructure lead. But we had a really hard time to create like an example. For example, a repo with all our scripts, which would be useful for anyone. I also noticed that there are no products in the market that deliver automation, and that this is a really tough challenge. So it became a very interesting problem for me. And then when I decided to start my own company, the first thing I did was do some market research and just talk to dozens. And then, later on, it became hundreds of FinOps leaders, DevOps leaders to understand what they're doing internally. And that's where I really, that's where I was already fully convinced that this is a big problem which exists almost everywhere, or at least there's a huge market for it.
Interesting.
Okay.
By the way, one little thing, because it was very funny. So we just, Steve and I were at an event which is cloud and AI infrastructure thing. I don't remember being so excited by looking at racks. And so I come from even before the cloud. I come from being in the data center, and I was explaining what a data center was to people. And I was surprising myself being excited about the infrastructure more than I anticipated. But that's because I don't do it anymore, probably. Anyway.
And for me, I think it was the opposite, because I was born into a more digital age, let's say. I'm almost 40, so not that much. Like I still remember life without the mobile phone and the computer. But I've never liked the idea of maintaining my own servers under the desk or having a room at the office where I physically need a new computer to deploy my software. And that's why the cloud was so charming to me, and then the infrastructure as code was so wonderful to me. Like, wow, you can provision all these resources and get your app running with like a YAML or a JSON that you just tell the cloud to build for you. That blew my mind, and the speed in which you can build new applications, that was just mind-blowing.
Yeah, it was. So, yep. No.
Sorry about that. I've had my IT support team try to call me at the same time because they're trying to restart this. So that's why I had to look over here. I'm trying to manage it. I said, I'm not free till 12. And I've had about 6 calls. Anyway, they're trying to redo the encryption. Anyway. So you saw this problem in the market, which was around automation. If we look at what's just come out of State of FinOps, it's happened once again. It used to be called it used to be called getting engineers to take action. Then it changed to empowering engineers to take action. Then it changed to reducing waste and resource management stuff, which is all really the same thing. And that's the same problem again this year. And I think we see a lot of problems with that, right? We had Mel Pinto come on, a fantastic lady, great engineer. And we talked about like engineering fatigue, like when FinOps teams are just sending a CSV on an email, which isn't the systems they live in, just all these kind of problems. And so you saw that across, and we see this, right, Frank? We see this everywhere. It's like you keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result, right? That's what we see in most organizations. So when you decided to build OpenOps, what was your ethos then? What was the way you were going to solve that problem?
Yes, definitely. First of all, we saw exactly that. We saw companies, one after another, going to engineering managers with huge lists of CSVs. And by the way, that's you have dear engineering manager, you have 500 optimization opportunities. Here's the spreadsheet, please go handle it. And of course, an engineering manager is, as you said, has a lot of fatigue, right? They're busy. They're being asked for from product, to deliver new features. They're being asked from security to remediate their open source vulnerabilities and their static code analysis vulnerabilities and their container image vulnerabilities. And SRE needs to make sure everything is available. And now also FinOps wants things to be cost effective. How rude. And when you think of what the engineering manager is not the person to solve these problems, right? They don't know. They literally don't know. They need to talk to their people to get answers. It's a very long cycle. The cycle isn't managed. So sometimes they got an answer saying like, this whole cluster that you want us to optimize is a disaster recovery cluster. Like we can't optimize it. We won't have disaster recovery.
Yep.
When you do everything through CSV, this data gets lost in the way, and then it creates frustration, right? Because FinOps is an horizontal figure, sometimes directly under the CTO even. Will say, okay, you have a lot of problems that you haven't optimized in the review with the CTO. And then, the engineering manager will say, no, we checked what you sent and it was false positives, and no one kind of has the data, right? No one really knows what went down there because it passed through very long and inefficient cycles. And then we saw... We try to understand, okay, so obviously you could automate this entire process, right? You could send notifications to people. You can make it easy for them to respond and to remediate issues by, click to approve, for example, deletion of the database. You could, if you automated it, you could also have the data, right? Because you could collect the reasoning for why you're not doing this or why you're not doing that. And I was wondering, why don't companies do that? And the answer was that actually a lot of them do. That's where a lot of them are building internal scripts to do exactly these kind of things.
Yes.
And we saw one after another. The larger the enterprise, the larger the company, the more able they were to dedicate resources internally and to build these scripts. But they kind of underinvested. They wanted a lot of automation in FinOps, but they put one or two developers there. And these one or two developers were also the ones doing proactive architecture discussion with teams and a lot of other things. So actually, it was very hard to maintain. It wasn't as good as they wanted, etc. So we already say, okay, everyone are trying to build something internally. They have a lot of problems with it. It doesn't work. Okay, there's a gap here. But then we were thinking, okay, why don't other FinOps products solve this? And then we understood that, it's very hard because every organization has different ticketing systems, different communication systems. It can be Jira, Asana, ServiceNow, Azure DevOps, and then the cloud is different, right? And they are using different services, and the communication system can be Slack or Teams or something else potentially. And the DevOps pipeline can be in GitHub Actions. The source control can be in GitHub, GitLab, and others. There's too many integrations required. And the number of permutations to support every organization is just too big. And the other end of it is that also organizations are slightly different than each other. It sounds like they all want to automate optimization, but some of them are willing to be more aggressive. Some of them have a less of a risk appetite. Some of them would want exemptions and approvals, and others would want to just shut down resources in dev, for example, as an example Steve said before. So the fragmentation of systems and the different needs of different companies make it so that it's really, really hard to ship automation that works out of the box.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the balance, right, between something that works out of the box and scripting? That's where we thought of no-code. Why no-code specific to FinOps? Because it allows you to build all the integrations. It allows you to build automations fast. These automations can be customized because it's a drag and drop interface where you build your workflow. So that's already a huge advantage. You can build much faster. You can customize much faster. You can adopt it to your organization. The other end of it, by building a no-code platform which is specific to FinOps, you can start to curate playbooks, because people don't want to build automations from scratch because everyone are building very similar automations. So if you're focusing with a no-code platform on the specific domain of FinOps, you can bring a lot of best practices from the industry, and then the customization is quite easy. So that's what we're doing at OpenOps, and that's how we came up with the idea through our market research.
Fantastic. And so the reasons we're recording today, or releasing today, is because there's something pretty exciting going on that had me very excited. And I knew Frank, who is coming to this call as kind of as the public, as not been on the inside track, and that's why he's had so many fantastic questions, is because something you're doing that's quite unique, that really fits into mine and Frank's background. So do you want to tell the audience a little bit about what you guys are doing?
Yeah. So indeed, very exciting news. On the day of the release of this podcast, we would have opened our platform as open source with the Apache license.
Oh, nice.
And it's going to be available for everyone to use. And when I say everyone, I mean everyone. Companies, enterprises, MSPs, even other vendors that potentially might compete with us. Mm-hmm. It's going to be open for everyone. And the challenge actually will be on us to bring enough value on top of that to make sure that, we keep our unique position. But we really, really believe that this is the right move for this specific type of product.
So you talked a little bit about kind of building playbooks and stuff like that. So just to help people understand the open sourcing of this and the kind of creating the open community of this. Is that just that people can use the platform, or are they also going to have some ready built stuff? So, so they're actually not starting from zero with it. They're starting already maybe in, 2 steps ahead.
Yeah. So the open source is going to be available for free, and there you will have all the integrations, all the options to build everything you want from scratch. And we'll also serve a catalog of templates that will come from our cloud. It's not going to be included in the open source, but it's going to be also completely free. And there you will be able to pull all the best practices. The reason it's coming from our cloud is it's going to be dynamic, of course, and it's going to be ever evolving. We will always publish more and more and more best practices. That's going to be the situation at the day of the release. And in the a bit longer term, we will also enable other companies to publish their own workflows and playbooks, etc. So, we kind of think about it like Notion templates or something similar to that, where anyone can actually publish. We will have our own featured best practices that we guarantee that they work, and we recommend as the expertise. But that's actually the grander vision. Like our thesis is that no single vendor is going to be able to solve a complex problem like automation in FinOps and in CloudOps in general. And the best people to solve it is actually the community. Like I want, like day one, our best practices that we featured will probably be the best you have to start. But going forward, actually my goal is for the community to create workflows that are better than what any other vendor has created. So that's kind of how we think of open source. And I really wanted this to be useful to the community. I really want everyone to be able to use it. I think like if you think about something like what we are building, it's essentially a more abstracted programming language. And I don't know any programming language that was gated under a paywall and became popular and successful.
Exactly.
That's so true, isn't it?
Yeah. I have two questions. I have two questions there. So the first question is, so you're saying you're open source, so what is the, I don't know how to call it, because we just said the language that people will have to learn or to know to be using your code?
Yeah. So essentially, it's just a more abstracted programming language, which is completely graphic. It's a drag and drop interface. You can, even if you go to our website, you'll see an animation kind of demonstrates it. It's a drag and drop interface where you can just pull blocks. Every block is representing an API. So, for example, you can call Compute Optimizer and get all the recommendations. Or we also have integrations with other platforms. So you can drag, for example, let's just take the market leaders. We don't support them yet, but it's coming soon. So let's say Flexera, Cloudability, Cloud Health, the three big market leaders. You'll be able to pull, let's say, a Flexera cube and get anomalies from Flexera, get recommendations from Flexera, or budgets, etc., and combine them into your workflows that you customize and build. And that's why I'm saying it's really something for the entire community. It's both for practitioners, for MSPs, service providers, consultants, and for other vendors as well, to add value to their system.
So let's say I'm already using a tool. I'm not at the moment. I'm just using native, but in previous roles, I think most people here know, I've used third-party tools. I could use and one of the things I was struggling with at times, if I'm deadly honest, was I was having to build on top of them because it didn't do exactly what I wanted. Because you do get to a point where you want something unique that it fits you. It's not the one to many. I need something that's just for me. The aim of this platform is this should empower me in an easier way. Like, I'm okay with Python, but sometimes you still hit the limitations, don't you, of your own knowledge, especially when your day job isn't coding anymore. This should empower me to build on top of whatever, and hopefully over time link any given tool to create the outcome I want, right, in an automated way.
Yes, exactly. As you mentioned, it should support you whichever tools you're using. If you're using the cloud native tools, so for example, we interface with AWS Compute Optimizer or Azure Advisor, so you can pull recommendations from there as well. You can pull budgets, you can run CLI commands or PowerShell commands. You can interface with any other product you would need in order to build automation while focusing only on the business logic and not on the boilerplate code to integrate, get permissions, etc. All of this you can do in a nice UX. And yes, essentially, I think it's a very good fit, the no-code approach. It's a very good fit to FinOps because FinOps combines highly technical people, like software architects and DevOps engineers, etc., with people that are coming more from finance and can focus on the business logic, but will probably not write a script with 200 lines of code. And now they can work together. And because it's open source and because it's going to be so democratized, everyone can use it. So, we wanted to make sure one of our motivations here was, like, for example, for paid platforms in enterprises, sometimes it can be really hard to get a user, right? And I don't want to reach a point where a FinOps engineer is not going to build an automation with our product because they can't share it with the organization, with the engineering organization, because they don't have seats in our platform. So we want to completely enable everyone to collaborate through that. And of course, yes, to build what they would otherwise build in scripts, do it easier, make it easier, enable. Democratization is a word that I really like, because what we're trying to do here is to lower the bar to help people focus on the business logic. So more and more people can contribute to building automations.
I think back, and I had an incredible woman that worked for me in my last place, and she was an analyst by background, but she really got it. She really got the cloud, but she was entirely self-teaching on the code side, and she had so many brilliant automation ideas, but she was slowed down basically by my availability to write code, right? And this would empower her massively. I think, I will literally send her this straight away. But
yeah, but yeah, the next two questions which you're going to have is how do you monetize? One, second is going to be how do I start?
Good question.
Yes, great questions. So monetization, obviously we're a commercial company, we're not a non-profit, so we do need to monetize somehow. And I think I have three parts to that answer. One part is enterprise grade security. So, if you're working in a large organization and you want really fine-grained permissions and connections to your SSO, Active Directory, pull all the groups, make sure that everything fits with the enterprise security model. I'm coming from Microsoft. We know how to build products at the enterprise-grade security. But of course, it's costly, so we have to sell that. The other part is also having to do with working at the enterprise scale. So, for example, if you need a tool to connect 1,000 AWS accounts to our product, that's probably going to be up in the paid end. It's not the average startup DevOps team that would need these kind of solutions. So anything to do with very large scale collaboration, managing hub and spoke model in enterprise, etc., that's also going to be monetized. And the third part is AI, which I would say truthfully.
This is going to be my next question.
Yeah, and truthfully, I would want to also open our AI, but for now we need to commercialize it because we need to guarantee that we have a sustainable model. So we first need to run with it and then see if we can, afford to open source that as well. But essentially, so, today, and I think this is a great example, as you said, Steve, we saw a lot of cases where companies are heavily delayed by the need to build automation by delegating it to R&D. So, for example, when I show a workflow, I had people commenting, to build this, I would have to spec it to R&D, to wait 3 months for them to prioritize and ship it. And then if I wanted to change the bar from 14 days to 30 days, I would have to have another iteration with them rather than just changing the parameter in your system. So no code can democratize a lot, but I think AI can also democratize on its own, right? I have a very good friend, very similar to Steve, what you mentioned, that is working in IT for a very large enterprise. And he had brilliant ideas for automation, and he was always blocked because he couldn't get coding, and couldn't build it himself. And now he's constantly building scripts with ChatGPT. So AI definitely democratizes building automations as well. Now, marry the two, AI plus no code, we believe that this is revolutionary. This will create a real revolution here. So copilots, agentic AI, etc. These are other paid features that we will offer.
The problem people have with coding with people that don't code traditionally using ChatGPT is they struggle to see the mistakes because it makes mistakes, right? And it's generative AI. And so I was speaking to Rich on Stan, who was like, I started doing this, but I had to Google round it to work out what had done wrong to tell it had done wrong. I was like, of course, you're right, Rich, that I've done this wrong. And I was saying, that's my benefit. I do sometimes use it. If I get something wrong, I get it to check it. And if I'm trying to look at a different way, maybe a neat way of doing it, I'll ask it, but I can see what it's done wrong. With no code being generated, you can see, because you'll be able to see the stages and the GUI and the drag and drop. I really like that kind of concept and idea. And if I can quickly describe, I want to do this, and it can build out the base template for me, then I can tweak it. It's already going to save time being no code, right? But then being able to do that in extra, I think that could be really, really cool. I'm really conscious on time. Frank, do you have any more questions?
I had the question was, how do we start?
How do you get started? So to get started, just the easiest thing is go to our repo. So you can search OpenOps Cloud, OpenOps/OpenOps. That's going to be our repo in GitHub. You'll have all the instructions there. We also have a Slack community. By the way, it does not compete with the FinOps Foundation and other communities out there because it's going to be very technical, tangible, specific to how to build automations with our open source. So that's going to be available at slack.openops.com. And you're all invited to join there. And through these two resources in the GitHub page, you will already have the getting started, and you'll see all the instructions.
Well, I'll try that.
Nice. It'd be really cool to see if we can do some carbon stuff on it as well, right, Frank, over time.
Well, yeah, that's my thinking, obviously.
Yeah.
Yes, obviously we need to talk about collaborations there as well.
We need to talk about how you're going to use the methodology and our data in the data so that we can effectively extend what is existing as product, because you can extract from, we were talking about optimizer or things like this. The optimizer take that and transform the results into, yes, I want to know the carbon impact. I want to know the electricity of that and these kind of things, which is, what I'm doing now. So very interested.
Yeah. Really cool stuff in there.
Very cool. And of course, I know your model. We can already in the platform connect to external databases and pull data from there. So cool. That should be very possible.
That's super exciting. Okay, perfect. Amit, any other cool things that we've not covered that you want to say, or have we managed to?
I think we covered enough cool things for today.
Yeah, I'm really excited.
Otherwise, you will not have anything more to see. People just coming to events, they say, well, I know you.
So for those who are not listening on the day of release, this is due to be released on the 17th of March, on the Monday. And so there'll be things being released throughout that week. I mean, I believe you're going to be at a few events coming up as well that we may have spoken about on other podcasts. So where are people going to be able to meet you in the next kind of few months?
Yeah, so first of all, anyone, please, is welcome to add me on LinkedIn, DM me on LinkedIn. I'm very responsive there. And I love chatting with everyone. I'll also be in London for the first week of April for the FinOps Day and the CNCF and KubeCon. Mm-hmm. We're going to be at FinOps X in San Diego and a bunch of other local events in Europe as well. Until then, of course, the end of the year, reInvent and maybe also Microsoft Ignite. Yes, I'm really a traveling agent. That's basically my job, to travel and tell people about what we're doing.
Well, that's your job. Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for sharing your news with us. As you can see, we're both pretty excited about it. Yes. We love stuff going open source. We love being able to drive automation. I love the fact that we can get in the path of the engineer, because I know we can put this into ticketing systems, into things like Slack as well. And it's been a problem for so many FinOps people I speak to. So I'm really excited for what you're doing, and the fact that you've gone on the open source route. I think that's really brave, to be honest. But I think I really hope it pays off, and I really hope people really kind of get into it and the community gathers around it and drives it. So thank you so much for sharing that with us, Frank, so much for your amazing questions. And everyone, thanks so much for listening. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Stephen.
Bye, everyone.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.